Hi, I'm Erin. Thank you so much for joining me for this Intro to Yoga series tutorial. Today we're going to be covering Utkatasana, which is chair pose or fierce pose, and you'll understand why when you practice it. And we're also going to cover Garudasana, which is eagle pose. And eagle pose is a nice one to tack on to chair because you need a lot of similar alignment practice. So we're going to start on our feet. And if you have a block, have that handy. Otherwise, no worries, you don't necessarily need one. All right, so there's a lot of modifications and variations for chair pose. I'm just gonna start with a traditional chair pose, and then I'm gonna give you some of the other options. So we're gonna bring the big toes to touch, a little space between the heels. So we want the sides of our feet parallel with the sides of our mat. And as the name implies, chair pose, we're going to want our legs to look like we're sitting in a chair. It takes practice, it takes a lot of strength in the legs, so it's something that we work toward. Okay, so we're gonna come from this standing position. We're gonna sit our hips low and back, okay, like we're coming to sit into a chair. All right, so first things first, we want to bring our weight from our toes back into our heels, so much so that we should be able to wiggle our toes when we're sitting in our chair. Okay, so the weight comes back and down. So next we want to keep a nice long spine, like we always talk about. The head is going to stay in line with the spine, so of course we're avoiding hunching and rounding, lifting the head up too high. We want one line from the crown of the head down to our tailbone. We start to lift through the chest as we sink into the hips. And then arms, we're gonna lift our arms up overhead. We want the biceps by the ears. All right, and we want our wrists in line with our shoulders. And then we're gonna take our pinky fingers, we're gonna find a slight spiral inward. Sit low, lift the arms, keep the chest open, keep the chin off of the chest. And you'll feel right away why this is called fierce pose, because it feels fierce in the legs, the hips. All right, just come out of it. Okay, so we have some modifications and variations to offer up. If that doesn't feel good in the low back, or you have a low back issue of any sort, I do recommend that you take chair pose with your feet at hip distance apart. So walk your feet to hip distance apart, spread the toes nice and wide as always, and once again we're working the sides of the feet parallel with the sides of the mat. All right, sink our hips nice and low. When we look down at our toes, we should be able to see them. So the knees aren't jutting forward, so once again this movement is weight back in the heels. We can wiggle the toes. Knees are in line with the ankles, in line with the hips. So try to avoid a knock-kneed position if you're gonna take the feet parallel, or then of course spreading them too wide, which feels awkward anyways. All right, so I'm gonna give you another arm variation here. So you can take arm variation number 1. Okay, another arm variation, if this is, we're still working strength in the upper back and the shoulders, feels like too much, bring hands to the heart. Just lower the shoulders away from the ears and breathe. Okay. Another arm variation that's an option is to bring the arms straight forward, palms face down. Okay, this is gonna work strength in the shoulders. If this is the variation that we're taking, we want to avoid this, okay? Lower the shoulders away from the ears. Sit back in the heels, hold here, palms facing down. Fierce pose. We want to stay really active in the inner thighs, so that's why I mentioned the block. If you do have a block, it's just nice to experiment with the block. You would take the block lengthwise between the legs, between the thighs. Your feet will come parallel to one another. You sit low, okay? And this is great to practice. You've got the you'll realize what your legs are doing, where they're active and inactive. Sit down in that chair. If your block just kind of starts to fall out, you need to start activating those inner thighs. So sit low in your chair. Let's bring the hands to heart center. Squeeze the block between the inner thighs. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Okay, so you're always going to want that action, whether you have the block or not, but the block can be a nice way to remind ourselves. All right. One other arm variation that I'm going to mention that's a possibility. Let's bring those feet back to hip distance apart. Spread the toes wide, sit low, weight in the heels, and sweep the arms up. This time we can connect the palms and start to lift through the chest, okay? So connecting the palms together, thumbs are crossed, okay, and you can play with the opposite cross of the thumbs as well. Okay, that's pretty intense variation. Takes a lot of arm strength. All right, so that's a chair pose, Utkatasana, fierce pose. So now that we have this nice understanding of sitting into our chair and our legs, we're gonna add a little balance component into it and come into eagle pose, Garudasana. So we're gonna balance first on the left foot. So we're gonna sit down into our chair. There's lots of ways to get into eagle, but I'm gonna tie it into our chair tutorial that we just did. So we're gonna sit low into our legs, okay? You're in your chair already. The lower you sink, the easier it is gonna be to get the wrap. So again, we're standing on the left foot. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take that right foot and we're gonna stay light, nice and low here and start to wrap it around the left. Okay, now we have lots of options. We can stay here with our legs crossed, kind of like we're sitting cross-legged in a chair. You can take that toe and prop yourself if you're feeling off balance. Okay, that's always an option. And then finally, if we can get that foot all the way around for the full expression, the foot wraps around the ankle, okay? You can see I'm wobbling a little bit, so the other foot is totally off the floor. We sit low, 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 low. Okay, these are our eagle legs. Nice place to come into it from chair pose. Okay, now let's add the arms. So we're gonna take the right arm and underneath the left. I'm gonna show it to you from two angles. Nice way to get into it is just bring both arms up overhead, and then we're gonna sweep right under left, left over right. So it's gonna look like this, underneath, over. So you have like a little X with your arms. Okay, so if the shoulders are tight, this might be where you are, okay? Maybe backs of the hands come to touch. Ultimately, for full expression, we bring that right hand and we wrap it around until the palms touch. Okay, so those are the eagle arms. You'll hear possibly cued in different classes to pull the elbows down and in, and we're gazing right toward our thumbs. They're in line with our nose. Okay, sometimes for a bit of a different stretch, the elbows come out and up. It's a really, really nice stretch. I love it, okay? If you wanna practice eagle and the arms are completely not happening, just bring your hands to heart center. You're not gonna get the shoulder stretch, but you'll still get the practice in the legs. So let's tie it all together. Now I'm just gonna do it on the other side now. All right, so we're gonna sit low in our chair. We're gonna balance this time on our right leg. We're gonna wrap that left leg up and over the right, hook the toe behind the ankle, possibly. Maybe not, maybe kicks down, maybe we're just squeezing the inner thighs together, okay? Arms, we're gonna bring that left arm underneath the right, cross the elbows, and then work the palms of the hands towards one another. And then we're gonna sit nice and low. And we wanna work the knees and elbows towards center. I don't have a mirror in front of me, so hopefully that's what mine look like. That's what I'm trying to do. My body, shoulders are away from the ears, and then the shoulders are over the hips. So try to avoid leaning too far forward. Sink low, and release. So when we're practicing eagle pose, we really want to find the squeeze of the arms, we want to find the squeeze of the inner thighs, And of course, we want a dristi, which is a place that we gaze at on the floor out in front of us, and that helps us with our balance. So if you're in a class and you're looking around at other people and they're wobbling, it's probably gonna make you wobble. So I highly recommend keeping your gaze at a fixed point on the floor. Thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial. I hope you learned something. Namaste.